Welcome back, guys, to the Luke and Connor podcast. That's not what it's called. The Music Elegancy by L&C podcast. Today, we're going to be doing cheap albums versus expensive albums. If you don't know what that means, basically, when you make an album, it costs money to make, right? Some albums take a lot more money to make than others. Usually, the expensive albums are from like more established artists or like artists that are, I guess, like have passed away. Usually they'll put a lot of funds into their like posthumous albums. And then cheap albums are usually like bands just starting off, rappers just starting off. It's kind of hard to actually know how much something costs because it's not like a movie where you know the exact budget. You kind of just have to estimate for most of it. You have to go off like anecdotes from people related to the bands making the music or the bands themselves. So some of this information might be a little bit inaccurate, especially for the cheaper ones, because like sometimes they can like record something for like basically like $10, but then they might spend like what $10,000 marketing the album. So you can't really take that kind of stuff into account. You're just gonna guesstimate, I guess. Not to sound like a millennial, but yeah,
Yeah, I think some of the expensive ones, they definitely took the marketing into account because I got some crazy numbers on my list.
yeah. I don't even really have that many numbers because like I said, this stuff isn't really reported. Basically, Connor did research on the expensive albums, and I did
Yep.
research on the cheap albums. And there's probably some that I'm like leaving off because like there's a lot of albums that just immediately come to mind for me, but you literally just can't find any information on how much it costs to make the album, which kind of sucks.
Yeah. It
All
was
right,
kind of difficult to find the expensive ones too.
I'll let you start with your first expensive album.
So the first expensive album I have is I'm gonna start with the cheapest ones, and at the end I'll say the most expensive one. But the first
Okay.
one we have "Loveless" by My Bloody Valentine, and this album they expected it to take 5 days and to be like super cheap, but they ended up spending $500,000, and it took like way longer, and they just kept experimenting and trying different things, and then yeah,
Dang.
$500,000 album, but it's a classic, so it paid off.
Yeah, apparently I'm pretty sure like it was like really like controversial at the time. A lot of people hated it. So like they probably felt like crap once it first came out.
Yeah,
Cause like I think like the like mainstream media would like hate on it. Like the British like
dang.
music reviewers said it was just like it wasn't even music and stuff. That's actually kind of surprising to hear that it's such an expensive album because like it low key doesn't sound expensive if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's pretty simplistic. It's just
It's
like
like you go.
it's just like I don't know, like guitar sound effects, Like it sounds like something a kid could do just at home on GarageBand or something. Not on GarageBand, but like just get a few guitar pedals and like you can make Loveless. But I think it was just the amount of time it took them because they just kept going back to the studio and they just kept re-recording and just experimenting stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Uh, it's just interesting to hear that it costs so much money because like you're saying like it doesn't sound like a kid could make it because that's kind of sounds like an insult. Like this is a really good album, one of like the best albums of all time, but
Yeah.
like it definitely sounds like usually experimental albums are something that I associate with cheapness, I guess, having to like use all like a limited amount of resources to make some like weird sounding music. But I guess they just like kept, like you said, going back to the studio. I think it paid off over time, but like I said, it probably felt like not a great investment once
Yeah.
they released the album.
Yeah. What's
What's
your first
annoying is
album?
like,
What's
wait, I want to
annoying?
say one more thing. What's annoying is I've always wanted Loveless on vinyl, but like it's low key impossible to find it on vinyl because like the only place you can buy it is from like their store from the UK, and then they have like UK shipping, which is like $30. So like, and the vinyl's already like $40, so you have to pay like $70 to get it, and it's like nowhere in the United States. So I'm like, are they trying to make the money back or not? Because I would buy the vinyl if it was a bit cheaper.
So it's not impossible, you're just cheap, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Nice. I wouldn't
All
buy it
right,
either for that much.
my first album is this is one where I don't have a number. I'm just gonna do the ones where I don't have a number first, and then I only have two with the number. I have 5 albums, only two with the number. But this one is Visions by Grimes. Do you remember that album? I think we
Yeah.
reviewed it back in the day. It's entirely recorded on, not just recorded, entirely made on GarageBand. Like every single beat, all the vocals recorded on GarageBand in her apartment. So like not taking like the marketing and like getting like the album art and stuff like that. Like it's literally a free album. Actually, that's not true because I guess you have to buy a microphone, maybe some studio equipment. But like
Yeah.
the fact that it was recorded in her apartment, she doesn't have to rent out the the studio. And yeah, that's just crazy because this is a really like lush sounding album. This is a very like unique sounding album, and it has like a couple radio hits too. So it's crazy to think that they're just completely produced on GarageBand. And I think that's a testament to like no matter the resources you have, you can still put out some bops.
Yeah, that's definitely true. It surprised me a lot when I found out that it was all in GarageBand. You wouldn't think so at all from listening to it, you know.
Yeah,
It's ironic too because she dated the richest man on earth, and she
yeah,
made the
Grimes.
cheapest album ever.
Yeah, Grimes made one of the cheapest albums ever, but dated Elon Musk and named their kid. I can't even say it because like you can't pronounce it. Zhao Ching 12 or whatever. How do you say it? You probably know how to say it.
It's like the AE logo, and then it's something, and then like his favorite plane at the end. I know that
Bro,
much. I don't think
that's
that's
just
the
crazy,
kid's
bro.
actual name, bro. I think he just said that so people don't like peek into his personal life and find out everything about his kid. Like they just stay on the surface level of like, oh, he gave him a crazy name, when in reality they just call him Bill. You
Bill.
know?
Yeah, bro. Grimes. I miss Grimes. I feel like she kind of fell off because, Visions, like that was the album we were just talking about, produced on GarageBand. And then her next album, Art Angels, which was like, wasn't produced on GarageBand, but apparently it was still recorded in her apartment. And then Miss Anthropocene or whatever, Anthropocene, was not as good as the other two albums. So it just kind of felt like, not to say that she fell off a little bit, but like it kind of feels like that. And she hasn't dropped since. So hopefully she comes back after her escapades with Elon Musk.
I think they broke up already.
I know they broke up. That's why I'm saying that
Oh,
hopefully
I
she can
see.
come back to the music scene.
Oh, I see.
Bro. Bro, she's such a weird person. Have you seen like interviews with her?
I don't know if I've seen interviews, but I've seen like clips and stuff. Just like her
Like
interacting, just being hella weird.
like not just saying like because dating Elon Musk in the first place makes you weird, but like there's like levels to this. In an interview, she said like she just started eating spaghetti and she just like ate it for an entire year and just didn't stop. Like that was the only thing she ate for like a year, and she like said she got like really bad like malnutrition and stuff, and like was just like passing out just because she was
What the
only eating
heck?
spaghetti and nothing else. I'm like, what the heck, bro? Just like voluntary torture.
Yeah. See, that's why I don't trust. That's why I equally do and don't trust when they say they name their kid something crazy. Because, like, I don't know if I believe that or not, but I equally do and I equally don't. All right,
Yeah,
my
she
next
definitely.
album. What are
It
you
doesn't
saying?
matter. Keep going. Just
All
keep
right,
going.
my next album is 2001 by Dr. Dre, and this really surprised me. This album cost $2 million to make,
Dang,
and
2 milli.
yeah, 2 milli. He, I couldn't really find out why. I know it has like a lot of features and stuff, but it's Dr. Dre, so I don't think he had to pay for features. So I don't know, maybe like for clearing samples or something, or
Yeah,
I'm
that's
assuming
my
he was just in
guess.
the studio a lot.
Yeah, there's that. Probably sample clearances and then marketing. It probably takes marketing into account, like you said earlier.
Yeah,
What's crazy is like he spent what $2 million on this, but like it's still not as good as the Chronic, which is like
I know, that's what I
probably
was
made for
thinking.
like a fraction of the price.
Yeah, way less. But
2001, $2 million.
at first I thought it was $2 million for the Chronic. because I like read the thing wrong, and I was like, what the heck? The Chronic was $2 million, but I realized that was I was just being stupid. But that would have been mind blowing if you spent that much
Yeah,
on
just
that one album.
this is gonna be kind of like I guess a reoccurring theme in today's episode, and that's the idea of sample clearances being really weird. Like it's so inconsistent. Like especially I feel like the bigger you get, the more obligated you are to like clear samples. But like if you're a small artist, like you can completely get away without clearing samples whatsoever, you know? Cuz like
Yeah,
I have
true.
a hit I guess I'll just use this as a transition even though we didn't really talk about that uh album that much, but Introducing by DJ Shadow apparently was it was made in the 1995 on like wait, let me look it up. Introducing uh basically he made it on like this sampler which was like it was even old for the time he made it in like 1996 or he made the album in like 1995 and it people like the person he was making it with said like bro you got to get a new sampler, this is like old and like raggedy, so he somehow just like obtained it and it like was made in the 1990 like in 1990, so he just had this old sampler and he just bought like a bunch of just random vinyl and he like samples Bjork and Metallica on it and just makes this like instrumental hip hop epic. But like apparently he just got away without clearing any of the samples. And I'm sure like once the album like got bigger, he started actually clearing the samples. I don't know how this like legality works. Just the world of samples makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, it's really weird. I
Especially
wish it
like
was just open source everything.
what I was like reading into is apparently producers really hate like websites like Who Sampled and like those videos that like are like sample breakdowns because like that's just like sample snitching to them. So because they try to find like the most obscure stuff they can so they don't get sued. That's like what
I see.
apparently a lot of like uh that's like why Madlib called himself like the loop digger because he would basically like dig for these loops in like these old albums that like no one has even heard of. And like that was like his whole gimmick is he would just like or I guess a lot of producers' gimmick, like Jay Dilla, DJ Shadow, would just go to record stores and just like find the most bottom of the barrel thing so they wouldn't get in like legal trouble. But of course, I mean, I guess DJ Shadow didn't really strictly follow that because he sampled freaking Bjork and Metallica, which were really big artists of the 90s.
Yeah. Bro, samples are just so annoying. She could use any music. I just feel like music as a whole would be so much more elevated if you could just rip off everyone, you know?
Like the thing is, like, you can, but once you get big, you can't. Like, I think that's basically what happens. It's
Yeah.
like I think DJ Shadow did just use whatever samples he wanted. He didn't care. He was just like a young guy, up and coming producer. And then his album got big and he was like, "Oh crap." So he probably like had to like get some samples cleared. This
Yeah.
album is not on my list, but I kind of want to talk about it like Bandana by Freddie Gibbs in 2019. He said that he produced it on an iPad, which like
Jeez.
I just find that so hard to believe, bro. I feel like
I
Madlib's
mean,
trolling.
what year did that come out?
2019.
I can believe that, bro, because iPads are like pretty close to a laptop. Like you can use a mouse and a keyboard and everything. I'm sure you can connect like a little MIDI keyboard to it.
Yeah, you're probably right. But Madlib, basically, I think he like got some like weird deal with Blue Note Records, which is like a jazz like record label where he can just has full access to their jazz catalog. So like he's basically like got he doesn't have to like get a lot of his samples cleared because of that, which is like a cool little tidbit, I guess.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a genius move, to be honest.
For real. That's another thing with samples. I'm sure like you know how like Jack Harlow sampled like a big pop song, I forget which one, like on First
Yeah.
Class, and like Drake does it too. He did that Daft Punk song. I don't know if they're on the same label or something, or they're probably on different labels, but they're both owned by like a big ownership group. I wonder if it like
Yeah,
if you just have full access to like the labels like music when you want to sample.
I don't know. I feel like you
'Cause
probably wouldn't,
I
but
feel
it'd
like you
be
should
cool
be
if it
able
was
to,
like that. Yeah, I think. I
especially
mean, like I said, you
especially
should be able to
because
sample everything.
well, like especially because labels just rip off their artists so bad anyway. So like, why not just like give them access to that for free?
Just give them access to rip off other people even more. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, what I mean, like, labels will jip people out of money, basically becoming like their owners, you know? Like, they just take
Uh
all
huh.
their money from the music that they make. Why aren't they just like making more I guess they're just making more money off that music now I think about it. Never mind. That was a dumb little tangent, a low IQ moment. What's the next expensive album?
The next expensive album is My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West, and they spent $3 million on this album. And I read like a little bit about it, but not a whole lot. But I guess the label was just trying to keep Kanye happy. And they just let him do whatever basically, and it worked out good because it was a huge album.
Yeah, and contrasting to, I guess, well, I guess 2001 had like somewhat good reception once it first came out. It's like kind of a classic. Like it's like a mainstream classic, but like niche hip hop heads aren't really going to be like gassing it up, I feel like. And then Love List is obviously a big nerd album. People think it's a classic, but it got like bad press once it first came out. But My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, it was basically an instant classic, so like this definitely paid off
Yeah, definitely. I think
cuz like it
2001 is like a classic only because it's Dr. Dre. Like if it was anybody else, then it
yeah,
wouldn't be a classic.
I
I mean,
agree with
maybe
that.
not because it's kind of out of our era, so it's hard to say. But
Yeah.
yeah, Kanye's album definitely paid off for it. I wonder if that that like long music video for Runway. It's like 40 minutes. It's like a
Yeah.
whole music video for the whole album. I wonder if that's got to be calculated in this price because I'm sure that was pretty expensive to do.
Yeah, for real. And the marketing, they had like a pretty elaborate marketing gimmick, if I remember correctly. They had like the Good Friday stuff where they would just like basically release all these singles
Oh, really?
for, yeah, with like Young Money Entertainment and stuff like that. It was just like they called it Good Fridays, and they would just release music like every Friday leading up to the album. And like they weren't like singles for the album, they were like completely separate singles, if I remember
That's cool.
correctly at least. And
I
also
didn't even
like
know that.
the recording had to be super expensive for this album because like not only is it like a My Bloody Valentine situation where they're just like stuck in the studio, like infinite looping in the studio, but also it's in Hawaii. So like a Hawaii studio probably has to cost more than a
Oh
normal
yeah.
studio.
Didn't
And
he
like
have like?
also,
Sorry, you go.
I was just gonna say, and like he had stupid things where he had to like wear suits at all times. So like they probably had to like buy suits for every single person who was like working on the album.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, didn't everyone have to wear suits and like they had to fly it to Hawaii if they were on the album? They had to be there in person.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
But like
Kanye's what?
I don't even know what I was gonna say. I was just freestyling.
Always freestyling cut me off. Kanye's crazy,
My
like
bad.
his I don't know, like creative process. Like he'll just do the most bizarre things, but it works. It's like I mean, maybe it's unnecessary, but he creates like the best albums from the crazy rules. Like I've just seen pictures of like signs he's written, like rules for everyone in the studio, like no phones, you must wear a suit, like all this crazy stuff, but it works, man.
Yeah. For My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, I remember he had something called the Kanye Commandments, and like one of the rules was no tweeting, and just like it's gonna like age bad. I feel like once Twitter inevitably goes bankrupt, people are gonna be like, "What does that even mean?" And then Apparently, like Kanye would like sleep in the studio for My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I'm just like trying to like dig back into my archives of my brain, remembering all these because I watched this Kanye West Iceberg a couple years back, and it was like
Oh,
there's three parts to it. The first two parts were probably both like an hour long, and then the third part was like 5 hours long. So it was like 8 hours of just Kanye information. Oh, it was just crazy. I don't even know why I had spent all that time watching that, but it definitely felt worth it.
it felt worth it. The
It did,
heck?
bro. I'm reading the Wikipedia right now. Apparently, like when they weren't recording, they would go to the YMCA and play 21 against just
What
like
the
random
heck?
people at the YMCA. So like that couldn't have cost that much money. I wonder if they're still in suit while they were doing that. Imagine just
Bro,
being like a little kid at the YMCA trying to play basketball against people, and then like Kanye, Rick Ross, and Kid Cudi show up in full suits and play 21 against you.
that'd be. I don't even know what I'd think if that happened, bro. That'd be. It's just like the most bizarre thing that ever happened.
I think the most frustrating thing about My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is, I guess, all the lost potential that comes with it because, like, when you look at all the people that were flown out, there's so many people that didn't end up being on the album, like Madlib, which was like a producer we were just talking about. Like imagine Madlib. I mean, we saw Madlib beat on The Life of Pablo, but like there were so many producers and rappers that were flown out to Hawaii literally for no reason. That would be so frustrating if you were like an up and coming rapper and Kanye is like giving you your chance to break out and you think you're gonna be on like his like best album of all time and then you're not even on the album.
Yeah, that's a theme with a lot of Kanye's albums. I think he has like 5 features for every one he puts on, which is a great strategy. He gets a lot of good features that way.
Yeah.
Do you
It's
know
like
for
a
the
good
Nicki
strategy,
Minaj
but it
feature?
annoys me.
Yeah, it is like kind of annoying, but it's cool when the feature when the verses leak, and then you can hear like what
Oh
it
yeah.
could have been.
Alternate
But
realities.
yeah, did you know for the Nicki Minaj feature that she recorded it like 3 different times? That's why she has like a crazy angry voice and like a normal voice, and then Kanye like chopped it up like however he liked it.
No, I did not know that. That's smart though.
Yeah, yeah, that's Kanye,
I'm
man.
looking at
Musical
I'm looking at
genius.
the I'm looking at the Wikipedia right now and it shows all the people who didn't make the cut. You have MIA, uh Mos Def, Santa Gold and Seal. I don't know who those people are, but Mos Def and MIA would be really cool features on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. And then you also have producers like Q-Tip and DJ Premier, which Premier was like a big producer for Illmatic, if you didn't know. I'm pretty sure at least.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Let me check actually. I feel like I made that up. No, I'm right. Yeah. DJ Premier.
All
Also
right.
Q-Tip produced for Illmatic too, so what
Really?
if my beautiful yeah, in some alternate universe, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is just like Illmatic Part 2 but with Kanye.
That's crazy. How did Nas get some big names to produce for him for his first album?
I think he was just like I think I think music just kind of worked differently back then. Like if you were just like good at music, the record label would sign you. Like you didn't really have to prove yourself as oh, you'd prove yourself, but like in a different way, I guess. But
Yup.
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he had like a mixtape or something that I'm unaware of. And
Yeah, probably.
I don't know how big DJ Premier was at the time of release, but I know Q-Tip was definitely a big name in like 1994.
Yeah. What's your next album?
Oh, my next album. I guess I'll go to my final album that I don't have a price for. This one is like it's kind of like a weird story, but oh, I don't really even know the story that much, but it's a weird circumstance, I guess, and that's Twin Fantasy by Car Seat Headrest. Basically, they released the album in 2011 and they recorded it on a laptop microphone. Like
Dang.
I don't even know how that's possible. So like they created the entire album basically just on a laptop. Like they would just play music into a laptop, mix it properly, and then yeah, they released it. It wasn't really a huge album when it came out in 2011. Uh, but basically, they kind of worked their way up through the indie rock scene. In 2018, they just completely remade the album, just like an identical version of the album, just with good mixing and mastering. So like when you listen to Twin Fantasy today, you can actually listen to either or version on uh, Spotify, but the better version is the 2018 version, just because it sounds better, and like I feel like they fully realized what they were trying to do. But it's just interesting to see that like that was like I guess an example of cheap equipment actually holding back the artists. Like they just would have benefited if they had the full studio equipment when they made it in the first place, even if the ideas were still good. Like it's still a good album, but like there's definitely a noticeable difference between the 2011 version and the 2018 version.
Now I want to listen to the original.
Yeah, did you even know there's two versions of it?
No, I never knew that. Hey, no.
The bunny.
He's chewing up stuff.
Shaking my head, man.
I know,
Yeah,
man.
basically the 2011 version, they called it after the release of like the 2018 version, they renamed it to Twin Fantasy Mirror to Mirror, and then Face to Face is the 2018 version. There's like basically zero differences between the lyrics except for a couple like name changes for some reason. Like I forget what they say on the 2011 version, but on the 2018 version, he like changes it to saying he wish he could sing like Frank Ocean, but in 2011 he said like some other artist from the time.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's just another thing that's interesting about it is the 2011 version would never have been remade if it wasn't for like the cult following that it got. Like a lot of people just love the 2011 version and like will swear that it's like one of the best albums of all time. Maybe I'm just sleeping on it. I haven't listened to it in a really long time, but like it's just like it's like a blueprint. That's what it felt like to me. Cuz like Twin Fantasy is like such like an epic album, if that makes sense. It has like these big epic moments. Like it's not like Godspeed You, Black Emperor per se, but like it's like their own version of just like epic moments. What is that contraption you're holding?
This is a blinker module for my car. Stopped
Oh,
working, so I have to get a new one. I've been driving around with
dang.
no blinker for like 2 weeks.
Dang, son. But yeah,
Yeah,
basically car seat headrest has similar roots to LSC as the Luke Zone was recorded on a laptop microphone as well.
that's crazy. You're next up.
Maybe wait, think about it. It came out in what 2022. So in 2030, I will drop the Luke Zone remastered.
Bro, I could see that happening. I think I might be the only one who actually likes it though, so who knows?
No, it'll have a cult following. Just trust me.
Nah, you can't remaster that because the whole appeal is that it's like such a crappy mic.
That's what they said about Twin Fantasy.
Oh,
And
really?
then I don't know. I'm just making stuff up.
Oh.
What's your second most expensive album? Or I don't
So
even know how
this,
many albums you have.
I only have five too.
Okay.
Um, this album is by Guns N' Roses. And I knew nothing about Guns N' Roses, so it kind of surprised me to see them on this list, but I imagine they're pretty big because I've heard of them a lot before. But they have an album called Chinese Democracy, and it cost them $13 million to make. And I think it's
How?
because they took over 10 years to make it.
Jeez,
And
bro.
I don't fully know why. Like, I think it was part of it was trying to perfect it. I heard they had like a bunch of songs that they all did, and then they like choose the best ones for it. But I think there was also like problems within the band, like they had beef, and that also slowed it down a lot. But
Dang,
10
bro.
years is
Dropped in
crazy.
2008. Yeah, dropped in 2008. I thought that would be like a much older album. Yeah, bro. There's just something about like you know how I was talking about how like expensive albums are for posthumous releases sometimes. at the
Yeah,
beginning of the episode. I
yeah.
also kind of meant by like comeback albums. I felt like this probably falls into that category, like a band coming back. Because I'm sure like the Pink Floyd like comeback albums are probably really expensive too, but no one cared about them.
Yeah.
Like no diss.
I mean, Division Bell was pretty big, but other than that, no one really cared
True.
about him.
But like that one, those like 2010 albums I'm mostly thinking of, like the one
Yeah.
like the Endless River or whatever.
Yeah, no
Like
one
that
cares
probably
about
was a,
those.
I'm sure they put a pretty penny into the making of that album. I'm just making stuff up so I can slander Pink Floyd. That's how you become a good hater. If you want to be hating on stuff, you just make stuff up and pretend it's real. That's one of the best hating techniques. But yeah, I don't like Guns N' Roses, but I haven't listened to a lot of their music, so I can't really say that for sure.
Yeah, same. I just assume that I probably won't like biker music.
Yeah, that's biker music, bro. It's dad rock.
Yeah.
You know, my neck. What's funny is one of my albums is dad rock, but I guess it's dad rock in more of a good way. Pink Floyd is also dad rock, but like, there's like different genres of dad rock. We could go into this honestly, if we did a little bit of research and thought about it with our heads. There's like all these genres of dad rock.
Yeah.
I feel like at a certain point, like I feel like almost '90s hip hop is dad rock. It's not rock, obviously, but like there's some people who are fathers who will treat '90s hip hop the same way they would treat Guns N' Roses. You know?
Yeah, definitely. That's my dad. I found out my dad is equally me as he is equally you. Because I was talking to him about Radiohead and Pink Floyd, and he was like, "Yeah, I have some of both their albums. I like them equally." I was like, "Dang, that's crazy.
See,
That's me and Luke's biggest beef."
well, what's funny is like that's probably like the average person. Like most
Yeah,
people I talk
probably.
to, like they'll probably have like one or two like tens from each. Like not no like average person has like only tens for one and only tens from another. You know?
Yeah.
So I guess we're just psychotic psychopaths who hate Guns N' Roses.
Yeah,
Just
we
like
are.
when you listen to, okay, I'm just on a complete hating just
Okay, go for it.
span. Like when you listen to Guns N' Roses, like you just like you feel so just horrible. Like I don't know how to put it in any other way. Like you just feel like the most like racist person on earth or something. I know that sounds like bad, but like when I listen to Guns N' Roses, I just can't help the urge to feel like I'm like doing something like morally wrong. Like listening to Guns N' Roses, like every person I meet that like loves Guns N' Roses says like something super questionable. Like as long as I'm talking to them, like I could say two sentences to them, but they will say something questionable in those two sentences, where you're just like, "All right, man," and you just have like that awkward little silence between you. You're just like, "Why did you just say that? We just met." Yeah,
Very
but
interesting.
Guns N' Roses, $13 million, and no one cares about their album. Good riddance, Guns N' Roses. What if I actually listened to Guns N' Roses and I liked them? Like, why am I on this hating?
Yeah, have you ever even actually listened to him?
I've just only heard the like songs that will play on like at a freaking like a 50s, not a 50s diner, but like an 80s diner. I feel like if you go to like a place where they play 80s music, they'll always play some Guns N' Roses songs. I'm like, well, they'll play them in movies too, I guess.
I think you live in a cartoon, Luke.
I literally do, bro. I just make stuff up, like I said. When I'm hating, I just make stuff up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I feel like everyone does that. Like if you're trying to like create an argument against something you don't like, you're literally just going to be stretching the truth and lying most of the time. Like even if it sounds like you're telling the complete truth, like you're probably still stretching the truth at least a little bit.
Want to know what I realized about myself?
What?
When I tell stories, I always try to make sure that it's like so truthful. Like I try to remember the exact story, exactly how it happened. And I realize I'm actually just super boring because of that. Like I have to actually just lie and make stuff up to make it exciting.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
there's a difference between I guess lying and exaggerating. If if you're using exaggerating language, like obviously, like there's gonna be like always that one person that's gonna be taking it literal, and they're like, "Wait, what?
Yeah.
You actually went to 1,000 stores in one day? How is that even possible, bro?" But like most of the time, people are like, "Okay, yeah, you didn't. That sounds like a busy day."
Yeah.
All right, for I guess my second cheapest album is actually an album that I have at a 10 out of 10. I don't know if you've ever even listened to it, but it's Death Consciousness by Have a Nice Life. And this is the perfect example of like you don't need much materials to make a good album. This album was made for less than $1,000, which is crazy. Like
Jeez.
when you think about it, like if you listen to Death Consciousness, it's like a very ambitious album. It does a lot. It's one of those albums where it's like it feels like it's every genre, but it also feels like there's no genre that can actually fit it inside of it. I guess it's like a very unique album. It's very atmospheric. I always talk about how like I like when albums are efficient, where they can like you're like 40 minutes and you get the whole idea. But this album is one of my exceptions to that rule. It's like an hour and a half long, but like there's no other album like it. The atmosphere, it just sucks me in every single time. And it's just a really heartbreaking, really great album. I feel like if you haven't listened to it, you got to listen to it at some point. But it's one of those albums where you're like, if you're not in the mood for it, like there's no reason to listen to it because it's just so like atmospheric and so like emotional and just like every ounce of effort was poured into this album and it was just made off like a couple thrift store instruments basically and just like FL Studio.
Dang. What year did it come out?
I think 2007, 2008, somewhere in that range, maybe 2006. Look at me.
Just throwing it out there. I haven't heard the
Yeah.
full album, but I've heard a couple songs from it, and they've all been really good. So I'd probably like the album.
Yeah, it's a very like it's kind of like Loveless in a way. It's they're both kind of shoegazy where you just have like these really distorted guitars, whereas I guess Loveless is more like you're kind of finding beauty in these distorted guitars. Death Consciousness is like these distorted guitars can make you feel like you're empty inside, I guess. And that's what they do. It's just crazy that they made it for like so little money. This is kind of a weird complaint. It's not really even a complaint. I wish they just never made a single like piece of music after this cuz like I have like this I love for when bands drop a super amazing album and then just like dip off the planet of the earth. Like when you have like
Yeah,
Spiderland by Slint, that's what they did. I guess they released an EP after and then Neutral Milk Hotel in the Aeroplane Over the Sea. That's an album we should talk about. That's one of the weirdest albums, and there's so many weird stories about it.
really. I don't know any of the
Yeah,
weird stories. I just know it's a weird album.
yeah. So Death Consciousness. Uh, basically, it's just like it's crazy that it was this cheap, just considering how much of an epic it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that
Like
makes sense.
it's a long, very ambitious album, and like the fact that it costs less than $1,000 and Guns N' Roses, like normal pop rock, hard rock album costs $13 million is crazy.
I know, bro. That's so much money just for one album. Wait till you hear
Yeah.
the last album, bro. It blew my mind.
Wait, can I predict it? This is
Yeah, what do you
like
think it is?
I have no idea what it is, but like I feel like it has to be the freaking Michael Jackson album after he died,
Which one?
like Invincible or something like that.
Yeah, you guessed
Am I
it.
right? Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yep.
I think I may have like seen a list a long time ago, so like maybe I'm just remembering that, but I've only heard about like that album is just like an insane waste of resources.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to be marketing because I can't see how they
hmm
spent that much money to make it, but
Okay, I don't know what the
maybe.
number is. You
Guess what the number is.
uh okay, so it's more than 13 million. So I'm gonna go like what, $96 million.
Jesus, that's a lot of money. It's only 30 million.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Bro,
Dang.
96 million is crazy. $100 million on one album is
Okay,
absolutely insane.
here's my like rationale. One, it's Michael Jackson and he died. Like,
Yeah.
well, actually, what did he die before this? Actually, maybe I'm just making this up. Maybe he was alive when this came out.
I don't
I think
actually
I'm making
know.
that up. Let me look it up. Yeah, I think he was alive. He was alive. Yeah, he was. He was. He was. He was. He was.
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
alive.
2000 was. I don't know why I
Yep.
thought he was dead. I guess it was his final album. That's why I think he was dead for some reason.
Oh,
But back to what I was saying. One, it's Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson, that's just like it's the biggest name in the world. It's probably still one of the biggest names in the world, you know? Like there's going to be a lot of money involved with Michael Jackson. And two, when
yeah.
you look at movie budgets, it'll cost them like 500, like for some movies they could spend like 500 million dollars just to make a movie. So if they don't make a profit of like, I mean, if they don't make like at least like $1 billion, like it's not even worth it. I think actually
Yeah.
some movies were almost close to $1 billion. So like I'm thinking if it's Michael Jackson, you could probably get close to those numbers. But okay, go on to
Yeah, I mean,
your lore.
that makes sense, but it's just music. Like for a movie there's so much more visual
Yeah, that is
elements.
for real.
But I don't know. 100 million is crazy. It kind of surprised me that like Loveless was only half a million. Like I figured like the base for albums with like big artists would be like in the millions, like average, but it's a lot lower
Yeah.
than I assumed.
Well, like there's not really much you can spend once you have the instruments, I guess. So like it's
Yeah.
just about studio time. And I guess studio time in like London is probably pretty expensive, so that's why Loveless made the
Yeah.
list. Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to say this. This isn't a comprehensive list like by any means. Like this was just like a little bit of research by me and Connor. Like these aren't actually like the most expensive albums ever made, like officially. Like there's probably
Yeah.
some albums that were like more expensive than Loveless. We just thought it was good to talk about it. And same with the cheap albums, which is even more obvious to me because like there's probably albums that are have been made for free that just no one knows about and they suck.
Yeah. There's thousands of albums like that.
All right, Invincible. What was
Invincible,
even
yeah.
like?
What?
Do you even know what they spent it on, or did you say you didn't know?
Not really. It's really hard to find out like what they spent it on. Like 30 million is just an estimate basically. It's
Dang.
yeah, it was difficult. It was difficult to like find these in general and like prove how much they were spent. Like they were all just estimates for that much and they would like talk about it, but yeah, I this one just had the reputation as the most expensive album ever made. Which it
I
makes
just
sense,
like
like you said, it's Michael Jackson.
it's just like crazy that like every single expensive album except for arguably I don't agree with this, but My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy and Loveless, except for those albums, like you can make an argument that they're all mid to bad. I mean, 2001 I think is a good album personally, but like I feel like you could definitely make an argument that it's mid. And
Yeah,
for the Guns N' Roses album and Invincible, you could definitely make an argument that they're bad, which is just crazy that they spent so much resources on like an album that like the vast majority don't even like.
yeah. I mean, we're not the vast majority though. That's a thing. We're like the
Well, like I just looked up like the rate your music score. You know, that's the most official source.
That's
Just
what I'm
kidding, but
saying. That's not
basically,
the vast majority.
I'm pretty sure like the general perception of Invincible by Michael Jackson is it's a mid album
Yeah,
or a
I guess
bad
that makes
album,
sense.
especially compared to his like better works or older works like Thriller and Off the Wall and Bad.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I guess I was thinking of the opposite of us, like the crazy moms who love anything Michael Jackson does no matter what. But you're probably right. It
It-
probably is mid.
yeah, bro, he's an activist for kids.
An activist? What do you mean?
Never mind. Um, yeah, Invincible, Michael Jackson. I've never. What's funny is I said it was mid, but I haven't even heard it.
Yeah, me neither. I haven't heard it
But like
or
I think that
Chinese.
speaks. I
democracy,
think
whatever.
that's I think that speaks more volumes than anything though. Like if you're spending 30 million dollars on an album, people like me and you should be hearing it. You know what I mean? Like we listen to music.
Yeah,
We're like we're in the music community. We like music. If we haven't heard it, like what does that say about the album?
yeah, you're
Or
right
what does
about
that say
that.
about us? I don't know. I guess we'll just move to the cheapest album ever made. Not really. It's by Black Sabbath, and you know what it's called?
Black Sabbath.
It's Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath. Apparently, this album cost £600, British pounds, to make, which is pretty crazy. Wait, let me do a quick calculation. So, when did this album come out? It came out in. Sorry, I know this is going to be awkward to listen. It came out in 1970. So let's do a little inflation calculator.
Okay, you're gonna have to convert it and do the inflation, bro.
Yeah, I'm going to do inflation calculator, British pounds, so I don't have to do that. The Bank of England. So what would, oh my gosh, bro, I don't want to use your cookies. So what would, £600 would cost £6,000 today. And like pounds aren't like a 1 to 1 to USD, but like it's pretty close. So like around $6,000 to make. So I guess technically Death Consciousness was my cheapest album. I'm sorry for lying to you guys. But yeah, this album is crazy that it cost only £600 to make. It was their like first album ever. So like I was saying, usually like cheap albums are the album that helps big bands like come onto the scene, I guess. But like Ozzy Osbourne, the vocalist for Black Sabbath, it's cool that he only apparently they would rent out like a cheap studio and they only had like enough money to do it like 6 times. So they like recorded like the like hour-long album in like 6 studio sessions, and it really like it's
Jeez.
crazy that that happened because like it has such polish. It's such a like well executed album. I haven't listened to the entire thing, but I listened to the first 3 songs, and there's only like 5 songs, so that's like what 3/5 of the album, and it's a good. I'm not into metal music a lot, but like low key, this album is like I feel like a really good introductory to metal music because I was vibing with it while I was biking to this podcast station. And
Interesting.
Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath off the album Black Sabbath is probably the best song I've heard from them. But there's probably better songs on Paranoid, but I haven't listened to Paranoid in so long.
How did you convert the money to US dollars? Because you would have to
I
convert
didn't.
it from the time, like from the value of the euro to USD, like in the 19 whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I didn't do that.
Yeah, so
I
you're
just I just
completely
did a
inaccurate.
dude like I'm sure it was like probably a similar rate back then. Should I
Yeah,
look up what
probably.
the conversion? Should I look up what the conversion rate was?
No, it doesn't matter.
Conversion rate.
I'm
I'm
doing
doing
it
it, bro.
anyways. I'll just
Conversion
drink
rate
my
of
fluoride
USD
water.
to British pounds in 1970. It was 0.04433. What? Doesn't sound right. What's a sterling? Is that the English pound? Oh yeah, it was. Dang,
I
bro.
don't know.
Yeah, so I guess it was slightly different.
It's okay, bro. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm too lazy to do the math on this right now. But yeah, I guess that's every album we've talked about. Uh, this is probably one of our shorter podcasts. I
Yeah.
thought there would be a lot more to talk about, but I guess not. There's a lot of weird tangents today, but I guess there's only one weird tangent, and that was the Guns N' Roses one. I still have no idea what I was on about with that. Uh,
For real.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say.
You want to cut it right here?
Do you have anything else to say, or
Not
any
really.
other
We
discussions?
we probably should have just looked up more albums, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just like I said though, like it's impossible to find information. Like
Yeah.
Invincible is the most known expensive album, and even we still don't know what was spent. Like it should be more accessible information, in my opinion, in my
Yeah.
information.
It's not like a movie budget where you have this amount and then you stick under it. Like
Yeah,
I think movie budgets, they make the budget before they make the movie, right?
I think so, but like they can go over and under budget if they want to,
Uh-huh.
and I think that becomes the official number afterwards.
Yeah. I don't think music has like that type of that type of budget thing though.
Yeah,
Like I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not signed to a
I
label,
think
but I've never heard of
actually
an album having a budget.
Actually, I think we talked about this on the last podcast about how Atrocity Exhibition put Danny Brown in debt. And like when he was talking about it, he said the label gave him a budget, apparently.
Interesting.
So like maybe there is such thing as a budget. But like
Yeah.
yeah, that was an expensive album. Like not as expensive even to the close to the level of these other albums, but like it was like almost $100,000, I think, of just like
Dang.
sample clearances and features, and like it put them in debt, and because like they barely, I don't even know how that works honestly, but shout out Danny Brown.
Bro, that's crazy. He goes in debt for his own music and then the label just refuses to let him drop anything to make it back.
Yep,
That's
shout out
crazy.
JPEG Mafia for letting him drop. Basically, I don't know how
Yeah.
like all these label shenanigans work. Like, how did Danny Brown like get to drop scaring the hose? I guess
I
he
don't
has
know.
like the ability to collaborate if he wants or something. Because he's on an independent record label, which is like nice,
Really?
but like I guess they're just really scummy.
Yeah, that sucks, bro.
Warp Records. That's like what Aphex Twin was on, and like some other people. I think Death Grips technically has a deal with them, but like it's a weird deal. Like technically, like I think it's like they don't like release the albums, but like they get like publishing rights to the albums they've already made, so they could like make vinyls and stuff
Oh, I see.
or something like that. Again, I don't really know, but yeah, I guess that's the end of the episode. There's not much else to say. It was a quick little one. Thanks for tuning in to the Music Elegancy by LNC podcast.
Yeah. See you guys.